I am your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. Okay, let's get into it. Too many things have happened in recent times. If you take a closer look, you'll notice there are two tracks. One is the fight against the attempted coup by voter fraud. Second is the confrontation between the US and the Chinese Communist Party in China. These two tracks can actually be merged into one main track, which is the battle between good and evil. Tremendous evidence of the voter fraud and the attempted coup in action have been released. Most shocking one being the recent video footage in Georgia. We will save this for a little later in the program. There is also some climax in the confrontation between the US and the Chinese Communist Party, in which the CCP is pushed back by 5 actions implemented by the US. So stick around until the end of this episode, because later in this episode, we will discuss a video clip that was submitted by President Trump's team from the surveillance footage from the counting center at the State Farm Arena in Fulton County, Georgia. This venue was the site where absentee and military ballots were counted. Okay, so many of you may be wondering what you can do to help spread the word about this great awakening. One small thing that you can do to help thousands of people like you see this program and help them with their own great awakening is hit that subscribe button and that like button and leave a nice comment. And please share this program with at least one of your friends, because everyone deserves to know the truth. And we thank you here at Front Page. Okay, so regarding the climax in the confrontation between the US and the Chinese Communist Party in China, in which the CCP warwolf has been pushed back by 5 actions implemented by the US. Action number 1 is that SMIC has been blacklisted by the US Department of Defense. On December 4th, SMIC, Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation, published an announcement on their company website that they noticed that the company was added to the list of Chinese military companies by the US Department of Defense. On the afternoon of this news, SMIC's Hong Kong stock dropped nearly 7%, while in the mainland stock market, SMIC fell more than 4% at the opening bell and eventually closed down at 1.99%. SMIC is the largest chip manufacturer in mainland China. The sanctions against SMIC will have a great impact on China's high-tech manufacturing industry. Because Chinese companies cannot buy chips from abroad, those high-tech companies like Huawei have placed almost all their bets on SMIC. But now that SMIC has also been sanctioned, not only is the chip manufacturer itself being choked by the US, but Huawei and other companies will soon be out of supplies. As a result of this action taken by the US, it is likely that a number of Chinese tech companies will be shut down before long. The shuttering of high-tech companies are foreseeable at this time. What's more, under the technological lockdown, Chinese technological development will be completely curtailed. As we can see, Chinese people are going to suffer again. Some netizens in mainland China said that they haven't had a good time recently, and they are going to have an even harder time now. So, will the people still be willing to be ruled by the Chinese Communist Party? I'm afraid this is something that the CCP may not want to know the answer to. The second action that the US has taken is the CCP has been condemned for their persecution of human rights activists. As you may have noticed, Hong Kong activists Joshua Wong, Agnes Chow, and Ivan Lam were given different sentences that are months long. The founder of Next Media, Jimmy Lai, has also been charged with fraud and taken into custody. Meanwhile, former legislative councillor Ted Wei Chi-fong announced on his Facebook page that he is in exile overseas. This series of events indicates that the Chinese Communist regime's persecution of Hong Kong is escalating. On December 3rd, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo issued a statement condemning the persecution of the pro-democracy advocates. He also said in the statement that the United States will continue to champion the rights and freedoms of the people of Hong Kong. The United States is still caring for the people around the world while it is repelling the attacks here at home. On the afternoon of December 3rd, Pompeo also met with representatives of a number of groups that have been severely persecuted by the Chinese Communist regime, including Tibetans, Uyghurs, Mongolians, Falun Gong practitioners, and Hong Kongers. Now, the third action the U.S. has taken against the CCP is they have set new visa restrictions on CCP members. On December 3rd, 2020, the U.S. government implemented a new B1, B2 non-immigrant visa restriction for CCP members and their immediate relatives. The State Department has revised its policy to reduce the maximum duration of stay for CCP members and their immediate families who hold B1, B2 visitor visas to 1 month from 10 years. And the visa only permits one-time entry. This is a very big change. Previously, Chinese citizens could apply for business travel visas that were valid for 10 years and allowed them to enter and exit the U.S. multiple times without any restrictions, with a maximum stay of 90 days with no special restrictions for members of the Chinese Communist Party. But this is not the case anymore. Many netizens applauded the implementation of the new U.S. visa policy. However, some netizens expressed regret that the visa period was shortened to 1 month instead of a complete ban, as previously rumored. What was the purpose of doing this? I once said that good people and bad people can be found everywhere, even among the ranks of the Chinese Communist Party members and officials. Not all party members and officials are unforgiving, but the worst ones are pretty unforgiving. The fourth strategy the U.S. is using against Communist political party in China is the U.S. is boosting its China spying budget by 20% in order to meet the growing economic and national security threat. On December 3rd, U.S. Director of National Intelligence John Radcliffe wrote in the Wall Street Journal stating that the People's Republic of China poses the greatest threat to America today and the greatest threat to democracy and freedom worldwide since World War II. In response, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has indicated that they have increased the intelligence budget against the Chinese Communist Party. In other words, the U.S. is no longer indifferent to the threat posed by the CCP. Rather, the U.S. recognizes the CCP as the greatest threat and is increasing its investment in countering it. Now, the fifth action that the U.S. is taking against the Communist political party is thousands of Chinese scholars with military background have been expelled from the U.S. On December 2nd, at the Aspen Cyber Summit, John Demers, who is the Assistant Attorney General for National Security Division, said that more than 1,000 Chinese researchers have left the United States amid a U.S. crackdown on alleged technology theft. They fled the U.S. following an FBI investigation this summer, which dug out their hidden affiliation with the Chinese military. A Justice Department official said the researchers, to which Demers referred, were a different group than those mentioned by the Department of State in September, when it said the U.S. had revoked visas for more than 1,000 Chinese nationals under a presidential measure, denying entry to students and researchers deemed security risks. According to that Justice Department statement, that would mean there are two groups of 1,000 people, meaning at least 2,000 Chinese nationals. Every one of them had some ties to the Chinese military. In other words, these were likely undercover agents and spies for the Chinese military. Demers also pointed out that the investigation conducted by the Justice Department found that the Chinese military secret undercover researchers had formed a huge network throughout the United States. He stressed that the earlier arrests of Tang Wan and others were just the tip of the iceberg. Next, the Director of National Intelligence speaks about the Chinese communist threats. Director of National Intelligence John Radcliffe made his argument about the CCP being the greatest threat of the United States and the greatest threat to democracy and freedom worldwide, saying it is based on three different perspectives. First, There is the CCP's economic espionage. The CCP's approach to commercial espionage is to rob, replicate, and replace. In other words, they first steal U.S. intellectual property, then copy it, and eventually take the company to the marketplace. He cited the example of Sinovel, the Chinese wind turbine manufacturer. In 2018, a federal jury found it guilty of stealing trade secrets from the company American Superconductor. Penalties were imposed, but the damages were already done. The theft resulted in the U.S. company losing more than $1 billion in stockholder value and cutting 700 jobs. The article states, the U.S. government estimates that China's intellectual property theft costs America as much as $500 billion a year, or between $4,000 and $6,000 per U.S. household. Let me repeat that. The U.S. government estimates that China's intellectual property theft costs America as much as $500 billion a year, or between $4,000 and $6,000 per U.S. household. And that's just 1 year's worth of losses. China is also developing world-class capabilities in emerging technologies. Its intelligence services use their access to tech firms such as Huawei to enable malicious activities, including the introduction of vulnerabilities into software and equipment. Huawei and other Chinese firms deny this, but China's efforts to dominate 5G telecommunications will only increase Beijing's opportunities to collect intelligence, disrupt communications, and threaten user privacy worldwide. He referred to the massive influence campaign the CCP has engaged in this year and included targeting several dozen members of Congress and congressional aides. Through company representatives, the authorities in Beijing can use US-based, Chinese-owned manufacturers to change the positions of their local politicians by making use of unions, threatening members of Congress with thousands of American jobs and votes. This is typical in using business to manipulate politics. The third perspective why Radcliffe thinks the CCP is the greatest threat is the CCP military competition with the US. According to Radcliffe, the Chinese Communist Party has conducted human testing in order to defeat the United States in an armed conflict back in the middle of the 20th century, regardless of morals and ethics. We will talk about this next. Now, the CCP is trying to develop soldiers with biological enhanced capabilities. Radcliffe also revealed the shocking news that the CCP had conducted human testing on military soldiers to develop soldiers with biologically enhanced capabilities. In his Wall Street Journal op-ed, he said, U.S. intelligence shows that China has even conducted human testing on members of the People's Liberation Army in hope of developing soldiers with biologically enhanced capabilities. There are no ethical boundaries to Beijing's pursuit of power. As I said, there is no evil that the Chinese Communist Party cannot do, but only that which we dare not even imagine. Please keep this in mind. Its evilness far exceeds anyone's imagination, for it is not an ordinary being, it is a demon. Now, let's move on to the US election. At a hearing on the election in Nevada on December 3rd, President Trump's legal team presented evidence of election fraud to the committee. It included details of dead people voting, out-of-state voting, double voting, etc., totaling tens of thousands of illegal ballots. President Trump's team also said that more than 130,000 signatures on ballots in Nevada were verified only by machine, which is in violation of Nevada's election laws. It is hoped that the court ruling will prevent Nevada from certifying its electoral votes to Biden. On the morning of December 4th, Gateway Pundit reported that the Trump team has obtained a Dominion voting machine in Georgia. The machine shows votes were moved from President Trump to Joe Biden. The report presented a video podcast of War Room Pandemic, hosted by former White House Chief Strategist Steve Bannon from December 3rd, in which Bannon interviewed John Fredericks, host of The John Fredericks Show. Fredericks shared with Bannon that there were 37 votes that flipped from President Trump to Biden on a machine in Ware County, a small county in Georgia. This represents only 0.26 of the Georgia ballot. But when extrapolating to the entire state, this equals more than 14,000 votes. So Georgia has stolen at least 10,000 votes for Biden. This finding echoes a previous allegation by President Trump's team that the Dominion voting machines counted Trump's ballots under Biden's name. According to Fredericks, their first report indicated that based on an analysis of election data, millions of Trump ballots were either deleted or flipped to Biden. With these facts and evidence exposed, the governor of Georgia might have a guilty conscience. Next, does the Georgia governor have a guilty conscience? The video clip submitted by President Trump's team is the surveillance footage from the counting center at the State Farm Arena in Fulton County, Georgia. This venue was the site where absentee and military ballots were counted. The footage revealed on the night of Election Day, a woman described as a blonde woman with braids told workers to stop counting and notified everyone to go home. After the Republican observers and Fox reporters left, 4 people stayed behind. They dragged out at least 3 suitcases full of ballots from under a long table covered with a black tablecloth and scanned and tabulated the ballots from about 11 p.m. until 1 a.m. the next morning. Attorney Jackie Pick, who assisted President Trump's team, played a video during the hearing. She questioned why these ballots were kept separate from the other ballots and why they were counted without observers. Pick said that the machines can tabulate about 3,000 votes an hour and that there were multiple machines in the room, which can be seen from the footage. She said, and they were there for 2 hours. You do the math. She estimated that the number could easily be beyond the margin of victory in Georgia. A video that has not been manually edited does not lie, and its authenticity cannot be questioned. The video was like a bomb that shocked everyone who saw it. It also confirmed that election fraud is not just a rumor, but a fact. After the video came out, Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia said in a Fox interview that night that he had suggested a signature check of the ballots, but the Secretary of State didn't do it. I think it should be done. He said, I think, especially given what we saw today, it raises more questions. A signature audit should be performed. He also said, I think in the next 24 hours we will see a lot more from the hearings that the legislature had today, and we will be able to look and see what the next steps are. Oh, Kemp is starting to shift the blame. In the face of hard facts, one has to admit that the signatures need to be checked. But this is just the video that was released by the state of Georgia, which was proven that there was serious fraud. I am sure that as time goes on, more evidence will be released. As I said, every piece of evidence that comes to light now only makes the leftist Democrats look bad and makes Biden lose face. Everyone is entitled to have his or her dream, whether his dream will come true or not. We need to keep one saying in mind: man proposes, God disposes. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with at least one of your friends, because everyone deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.